We are not alone. They are among us. As the skies light up, they believe we are blissfully unaware. But this activity by non-human extraterrestrial technology is capturing the attention of humans.
Hi, my name is Dale. I am an observer of anomalous objects, and I want to welcome you to my channel. I was really excited yesterday with the hearing. I thought there were some incredible guests. Well, let me tell you something. I have an incredible guest here today as well. His name is Steve Bassett, and so we're going to be talking about the hearing. We're going to have a lot of insight. Steve's been doing this for a long time. But I also, before we get to that, I want to thank you for watching the channel, for watching this podcast. If you like this podcast, if you get something out of it, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It would mean a lot. So let's start off with Steve real quick. Steve Bassett is the founder and executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, otherwise known as PRG, created in 1996 to advocate for government transparency on unidentified anomalous phenomenon. As a leading activist, he has organized press briefings, engaged in lobbying efforts, and worked tirelessly to push the U.S. government towards public disclosure of UAP information. In 2013, he coordinated the landmark citizen hearing on disclosure in Washington, D.C., where former members of Congress heard testimony from military, government, and intelligence witnesses about encounters with UAPs, marking one of the most significant public events in the disclosure movement. Beyond politics, Bassett has founded Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, connecting filmmakers, producers, media professionals with key players in the UAP community to help shape accurate and engaging narratives in popular culture. Through decades of advocacy, Steve has become one of the most visible figures in the UAP field, inspiring journalists, researchers, and citizens to demand accountability. His ongoing mission remains the pursuit of full disclosure, or as Steve likes to call it, Big D disclosure, the formal acknowledgement that humanity is not alone. And so without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring Steve Bassett onto the stage. Well, Steve, I want to welcome you. This is a tradition that we seem to have after every hearing. I want to thank you up front for your willingness to come on once again. You bring so much insight into each one of these hearings, and I'm really excited that we're going to hear your insight on the latest hearing. So what was your impression of this hearing? Did you feel like it accomplished what you were hoping it would accomplish, or is it kind of the same old, did we get anywhere, in other words?
Yeah, this was a very significant hearing, and I'll tell you why. But a lot of people, again, they're very impatient. We're close to the prize, and they want it now. And so they want spectacular witnesses that are going to say, oh, yeah, I worked on a ET craft, and I brought some photos with me, whatever. They're wanting this. And that what they don't understand is this hearing process is not about getting all this stuff out to you finally. Like, you want to know this and that. No, the hearing process, the government knows all this stuff, right? And the way we're going to learn really in a very robust way, the reality of this is through the UAP Disclosure Act, and we'll be talking about that too. And that's the way it should be, not from witnesses prior to this act, and certainly prior to disclosure from the president. But the process, this process is about setting the stage for an announcement from the president. The UAP Disclosure Act is part of that as well. get the stage set so the president can come forward and all things will move forward in a way. So they're looking at the hearings as like the next big thing, when in fact it's the next part of the process. Now, but boy, there was a lot going on here for sure. So where to begin? Well, first of all, one of the things that this hearing addressed is that the reason it was so long to have it, all the way in September, they wanted something in May, June, July. They couldn't get it. Why? Because the witnesses have gotten nervous. The kind of witnesses they would really like got the very substantial clearance, substantial information. They're not wanting to come forward now. And because they're more concerned about protection and perhaps than they were in the early days of this process. And so they just couldn't have the hearing. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that then, or maybe you didn't get, that the whistleblower issue was a big part of this hearing. It was coming up over and over again. Right? They talked about it from the panel and also from the witnesses, particularly Anna Paulina Luna and Burleson. So one of the reasons they held this hearing and structured it the way they did is to get out a very strong message that they understand the problem that whistleblowers have, that there's still not enough protection in certain cases, that they're going to be trying to do something about that, and make it as not easy, but certainly as safe as possible for them to come forward. And that message got out in a number of ways. And let's stay on that subject for a bit.
Okay, can I intersect for just a second? Because I
Yeah.
wanted to get your opinion on this. Did you notice Borland, as he talked about the repercussions that happened to him? He seemed rattled more than any of the other witnesses. I mean, his whole livelihood has been taken away from him. He's 3 or 4 weeks away from, being off unemployment. And so he is the very epitome of why we need whistleblower protection. Wouldn't you say that?
I was just about to do that.
sorry.
You were there. We're both on the same page. Yes. Borland. Why is Borland there? He doesn't have any specific information. He gave that out before, internally. So it's the best way I can explain Borland is this. Grush came out in June of 2023 with some pretty heavy duty stuff about legacy programs, or at least a certain about the re-engineering and everything that he got from firsthand people. And he put it out there in a big way. Borland apparently also had some pretty important information that he provided inside. In other words, let's just say that the difference between Borland and Grush, and I don't know the full time frame on when Borland came out, but it may be similar time frame, is that Grush came out after a considerable amount of preparation with a very substantial interview with Ross Coulthart, a very strong article in the debrief by Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal. He'd already gone through a substantial process with the intelligence community AG. And so we saw how it went. It still wasn't a picnic. He got threats. He continued to get some threats. He was attacked by Arrow and Kirkpatrick. His medical records were released and so forth. Borland, whatever he did not have all of that. Whatever he did, whatever he said to who, he didn't have that. And so they just jumped on him and made an example of him. And that's what they do. In other words, they've got a lot of people out there that could come forward with information or violate an NDA or just cause a problem for them. Talented people that they need to stay and work, right? So they don't want to have to crush 10 of them, or they don't have to drive 10 of them crazy. Pick one, crush them, break them, and the other 9 will get the picture. And in the case of Borland, yeah, he got the full treatment. He didn't get the Edward Snowden treatment, but of course, I don't think he went that far. We know what happens when you go pretty far. You end up in a villa near Moscow. So he didn't go that far, but they essentially ruined his life. And he was compelling. Again, we didn't really get any actual specific information other than he was providing information somehow to somebody, whatever, regarding legacy programs. And it was probably inside, meaning somebody outside of the programs he was passing that information. I don't know. So I hope that, and I think it's going to happen. I really can't do it. It's not that I can't do it. I sort of understand how it's done, but there are people that do it way better than I. I'm hoping somebody's going to do a GoFundMe. This guy needs a GoFundMe.
That's a good idea.
Put it out there and see if we can raise. I mean, this video is going to be seen by millions of people. Ultimately, really, it's going to have a lot of views. Get a decent GoFundMe together, raise 40, 50, 60,000, about, it's not a huge amount, so that he can get things stabilized, all right, and be in a much better position to make some moves in his life. But really, if he can just hold the line and be okay until disclosure comes, which could happen at any time, after disclosure, I think he'll probably be fine, right? He will be sought after, I think. But until then, it's going to be tough. So maybe there'll be a GoFundMe. But again, why do that? Okay, because one of the ways they structured this hearing, one of the reasons they had it, was to emphasize the whistleblower situation, because they couldn't get witnesses month after month. They couldn't get the ones they wanted. They were afraid to come forward. They had various reasons, but particularly not enough of protection in their mind. There's been an effort to try to get some whistleblower, or rather some stronger whistleblower witness legislation. It's not quite happening. So that's what they were really getting across, because we can't get the witnesses we'd like, but we're going to put together a hearing that's got a number of things, but the whistleblower thing is going to be emphasized so we can send a message out to everyone. We do care about this. We're aware about this. We're going to fix this to make it perhaps easier in the future to get some of these witnesses. So it was, in that sense, a message, and it was well presented.
Well, this is a perfect time to ask this question. I don't want to get you off track, but I think it's an important question. I think a lot of people might have it. Why is it that the House has witnesses and whistleblowers, and the Senate has been going after bureaucrats, leadership in Arrow? Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, Dr. John Kozlowski. So is that just the way it works, like parliamentary?
Not quite. First of all, one of the most significant things in this hearing that caught my attention right away, where I raised my head, you know what I'm talking about? I'm down there listening. What? Right away, Luna calls Kirkpatrick a documented liar.
Yep.
And I'm going, hello. Now, why did they do that? And they also raised the issue of the Wall Street Journal article, which is total nonsense, pushed back by the DOD. Mm-hmm. Because they are, again, sending another message. We are serious. We know the games you're playing. It's not going to work, right? And so we're going to push back when you do this. Kirkpatrick is particularly gotten nasty. There's a number of things he's done, unfortunately. The reasons are not clear. There may be an explanation that's a little more sympathetic than some, but she nails that right away. So the message is, look, we're not screwing around. We are the task force on declassifying federal secrets. This is one of our key agendas, and this is a major issue. We've been dealing with this now for some time. Did you think it was just a game, or that we were just trying to get votes, or just something to do? So she made that point right there, and that was further endorsed. But the fact is that pretty much the pushback to Kirkpatrick is coming from the people, and to some degree the House, not so much the Senate. But there is a dichotomy between these two. All right, the Senate is not doing what the House is doing intentionally. Right, the Senate is happy for the House to be the lead on this in terms of hearings, witnesses, and all that goes involved in it. They had some stuff over there, but very little. Why? Because they've chosen another path. They are the major drivers of legislation, obviously, right? Clearly, a huge effort has been put in to try to get the UAP Disclosure a major act, okay? And the previous three pieces of legislation all came and began with the Senate. Rubio, Gillibrand, Warner, and Schumer, right? So but why not do hearings and stuff? Because the Senate is also in the very front line of some major battles going on, all right? In terms of the politics, the Senate is the front line for the Democrats against the Republican policies. they do the nomination hearings, and they're going to have the fights. There have been a few. You may have seen them. So that is kind of a big deal for them. And so they don't want to get into the weeds. But the legislation they're championing, fine. Meanwhile, the House is doing that other stuff. So there's that dichotomy there. And it's okay. It's all right. The House hearings are more than adequate, particularly if they continue to escalate. And so while I'm on the subject, let's talk about the UAP Disclosure Act, because that's happening right now too, which is to say a lot is happening right now. There was a lull. There was some backsliding a little bit, but overall we're back in the business and moving forward. So for the third time in a row, the UAP Disclosure Act, pretty much as it was originally written, I don't know if there's any changes at all, was resubmitted. The first time it was done as part of the NDAA, and therefore it was subject to reconciliation before the House looked at it. And during that process, most of the powers and subpoena power, the review panel, and definitely eminent domain was taken out, and a bill with some significance that starts things in a way. And there has been a little bit of transfer of information to the archives. That was what we got. Okay, fine. So Schumer, which he promised he would do, resubmitted the bill as is the next year, 2024, but they resubmitted as an amendment. Right? Not in the NDAA, but as a side amendment to be voted up or down into the main bill, which is another way to go about it, and had the benefit that the members of the Senate would have to go on record, yay or nay, on it, and same in the House. But because it was part of the larger bill, it was subject to reconciliation. And I'm sorry, I got it backwards. Because it wasn't part of the bill, it was not subject to reconciliation. However, as part of the rules, very complex rules, and these processes, there were certain committee chairs that could block it. They could put in a block, which would pretty much kill it, because they're not going to fight that out. And they found out there was a block. It's not clear who did it. I can guess, but one of the chairs blocked it and said, no, we're not going to do this. And so they withdrew it, essentially. They didn't formally draw it, which would have been kind of an acknowledgement of defeat. They just sort of let it be known in inner circles. It got to us. I don't think it was published in the news. The news didn't cover it. Is that one of the staffers, poor person, they didn't get it in time. They were late to the party, and so it was rejected, which is a way to do it and save face. Okay, so that didn't happen. So then they resubmitted it again this year, again as an amendment, but they because things are continue to develop, they had acquired Eric Burleson, Congressman Burleson agreed to sponsor it. Okay, he's a Republican, same party as the speaker. And so he agreed to sponsor it, submit it. Okay, well, it got submitted. But in order to finally get it to voting, it's got to get scored. Not scored. They have to go through I forget the process, but it's where a bunch of inside staffers go through all 1,000 amendments to the NDA bill, right? And they check them all for this and that and everything else. And when they got to this, they found just too many things that were not quite right or whatever, and they didn't include it. Okay, so at each time, each three bills, a different part of the process is used to block it. Okay, we get it. So what they're doing, round four, Schumer and Rounds deserve some serious kudos, right? Right? They're now going to go again, and they're going to put it in the NDA bill. And if it passed by the Senate, which it probably should, then it'll go to the House, but it has to go into reconciliation. Now, what that means is if the defense contractors, lobbyists, want to go ahead and put pressure on key people in the Senate, or in the House rather, to encourage the reconciliation managers to gut the bill again and take the same stuff out, it's going to be, everybody's going to see it. It's going to be wide open. Everyone knows what's going on. It's going to be really awkward, right? Really, really awkward. And so maybe it won't happen. So that's where the NDA is at. And that brings us back to this hearing, because, and we'll go into this further, but this hearing was very powerful, and there's a lot of things, and we'll discuss them, that took place, and some other things behind the scenes we'll also talk about.
Well, let me ask you a question. What did you think of the witnesses? Were you pretty happy with the witnesses? I want to follow up with another question behind that, but just kind of give me an idea. You mentioned that they weren't necessarily the witnesses that they were hoping for, but I still thought they were really, really good witnesses.
Well, I did too, but for different reasons. I mean, the public wants big time. They want witnesses that blow our minds. Because they want this all out now. They don't understand it's not going to come out all out now. And these hearings are not about finally letting you know what's going on. You do get information, but the reason they're having the hearings is a necessary process, along with the UAP Disclosure Act or something almost as good, in order for the president to come out and finally do it the way it has to be done. The president has to confirm the ET presence, or the non-human presence, whatever the hell you want to call it. Nobody else can do that. And that has to be prefaced by all of this stuff. I call it building the platform in which the president can stand. Now, the platform is all, enough of the platform is in place. The president can walk out tomorrow. And I've said this could very well happen. I've talked about it and why it would be maybe a good idea. But nevertheless, short of that, they're going to continue to build this platform. And these hearings are about that. And so once you look at it that way, and you get off this thing about, I want to see an ET, I want to see it now. And then this was an extraordinary hearing. So you got 5 witnesses, and they covered a lot of territory, each one having sort of a different angle. As I say, the overriding aspect of the hearing was the whistleblower issue. They clearly addressed that thoroughly. All right. And the strongest part of that was, of course, allowing Borland to come in and tell the world what has happened to him and how it's affected him, which is not easy to do. Okay. I don't think any man of that education, stature, and accomplishments likes to get in front of what'll be several million people ultimately and talk about the fact that he may be evicted or something. Not good, but he did it, and all the more better to him. So, but other things happen, right, that are going to have impact. And the point I was going to make is this hearing's impact, which is going to be seen by a lot of people, may affect whether that NDAA does in fact get through intact. And this is how things happen: a coming together of several things, making a powerful whole that gets you where you got to go. So,
let me ask you the follow-up question, Steve, and that is, if there was one witness that you would have liked to see in the hearing, who would that have been?
Robert Salas.
I figured that's who it was going to be.
I got a lot to say about that, right? So don't worry, we're going to get back to that. Okay,
get back to that. Put a pin in it.
Absolutely. And so let's go down the list. I mean, I'll talk. I can't go into detail all of them, but the one that was very, very important, that a lot of people said he shouldn't be there. What is he? He's not a witness. What's he doing there? And that's George Knapp. Well, most people don't know enough about George to talk appropriately. George Knapp was an extremely important witness on several levels, and Anna Paulina Luna knew it. And so when you watch the hearing, and you need to watch this hearing a couple times and listen, because there's stuff you're not going to quite get until that second round, because a lot of things were being said and done that were very important, but you have to really get it to understand how important. So here's one. A lot of people maybe didn't think much about it, but only one witness was introduced by somebody other than Anna Paulina Luna, and that was George Knapp. And who introduced him? His congresswoman. She represented his district, and so she introduces him, highlights it, and she goes in and talks about his career and all the awards he's won: Edward R. Murrow Award, the Peabody Awards, 20 or some Emmys, regional Emmys, and on, because he has a 40-some year career of incredible body of work of investigative journalism on all kinds of subjects. This is only one of his subjects, though he has gone way beyond just regular journalism on this. I mean, he has been deeply involved, huge amount of time. It's what he's going to be remembered for. And he has the skills. And so he gets that great introduction, and then off he goes. Okay.
Wasn't it nice, though, that, I don't mean to cut you off, but wasn't it nice that he could actually name names? I mean, everybody else, and I understand it, and I'm not frustrated because I wouldn't want to go to jail. I wouldn't have to, lose their security clearances. But I mean, he mentioned Glenn Gaffney, and who was the other one that he mentioned? Let me see what his name was.
It was Gaffney
And James Ryder. James Ryder was Lockheed Martin and stuff. But I thought that was the one thing, the difference. And we mentioned Borland earlier. Borland's going, well, I'm not sure I can share it with you, and I'm not sure that you're authorized to hear it. Whereas George, he didn't have an NDA holding him back.
Okay, I mean, there's some validity to what you're saying, but it's not that simple. In other words, it's very possible that those two gentlemen he mentioned could have been mentioned by some of the other witnesses. They might not have been covered by an NDA. The question was, do you know somebody that are, gatekeepers of the legacy program? Well, saying somebody's a gatekeeper of a legacy program is hardly some super duper classified secret, I don't think. But
haven't you noticed how they never give the names every time they ask them for a name or a location? And maybe it's like you said, maybe it's as simple as we're talking about this is classified versus this is not classified.
Sure.
But it was refreshing to me to actually hear somebody give a name, so that there's not the shadows out there.
And it's possible that Eddie had his NDA, he couldn't have done it. It's possible, but more, I think what was most important is he was there testifying and be able to say anything. He fought, George is up there. He's not a young guy. Neither am I. And he got the chance to go in front of the Congress and testify and see, just be able to receive the accolades he deserves. He deserves a Pulitzer Prize, for God's sakes. He said everything else. Why not that? So I'm sure that was through. So he was able to mention that. But people don't understand that number of people that he has interviewed, the number of things he's investigated. It's all secondhand, right? He's a reporter, right? And so it's huge. And so technically he could have testified for hours, but whatever. So he's going through a number of things that he's done. And of course, I know some of that. And I was wondering, will he go where I want him to go? He's going to do what I want. I want this. I want this. I want this. Well, I already knew it could come up because it's in his written statement, which obviously people go to the oversight committee page that has on the hearing. They have the written statement, so you can go read them all, and it's in his written statement. But would it come up under oath? And so he starts giving his statement, and he's pretty much reading what he had put out in writing, which I had seen. And he's just about to get where I want him to go, and Anna Paulina Luna cuts him off. And they put up a video, which is not related to him, but they wanted to get that video on the record. So it started to smell to me like she deliberately cut him off because she didn't want that out. But I do not think that's the case. I think it was time because his statement would have gone on for 15 minutes or more. And so, okay. So I'm saying, well, we'll get this up into questioning. So they finally get done, and it's time to do the questioning, and they start, and there's this and that and everything else. But I'm in the audience, and this happened at the last hearing. It wasn't me, but it happened at the last hearing. Same member of Congress. I happen to have Congressman Burleson's private number, and so I texted him and I said, Congressman, please consider raising this issue in the questioning. And he did.
Oh, wow.
So it was during his questioning that he asked a question that allowed George Knapp to say something that has never been said under oath, period. And that is, he put in the record under oath his research that he went to Russia specifically and did there. He went over there a couple of times about confirming documents about episodes of nuclear weapons tampering in Russia. And the most notable one was the turn on. And that is the evidence, the document showing that in one of the facilities, which are similar to ours, suddenly they started going into launch sequence, and they have to go through and they're watching this happen. They can't stop it. And it gets up to the point where it's about to launch, which is not something you want on your resume. And at that point it stops and they drop back to normal. He got that research and he brought it back, and it was talked about, but fine. There's a lot of things being talked about. And so he goes into that. And so for the first time, statements under oath about the nuclear weapons tampering stuff is out there. Okay. Great. And then, okay, I forget who did it. It might have been Congressman Burleson. I'm not sure, but Robert Salas's name came up. And that was fantastic because Robert Salas was sitting right next to me there in the audience. So let me take a little detour and tell you some side stuff here. Again, a lot. But by the way, people need to understand that 10% of what's going on turns up in a hearing on your TV or maybe an article. Most of it is going on behind the scenes, here, there, and everywhere. So many things are happening and so many entities and this and that. History will take a long time to sort it all out. But I assure you, don't think that it's just, some people finally come forward. It's on TV. Isn't that great? But inside, nothing's happening. Believe me, tons is happening that we will not know about for a long time, if forever. And so here's a simple version of that. I've been trying to, one of my my number one goal right now is to get the hearing that we've needed for a long time. And that is the hearing for the nuclear shutdown witnesses, and a couple of other witnesses that are to similar nuclear events. Spent a lot of money to get these gentlemen to testify at the citizen hearing on disclosure, which is a mock congressional hearing where they took a mock oath, right? And that's on film. You can find it. It's on YouTube. And I've sent, by the way, that entire video testimony to every single member of the Oversight Subcommittee and the Senate Intel Committee. And I sent them the electronic versions of it. I also sent them multiple copies of the witness statements. I've been seeding these offices with this stuff now for almost 2.5 months, and that's helpful. Okay, so what happened is that I was able to get Bob to come out to Washington on receiving confirmation that Congressman Burleson would meet with him. And so after that hearing was over, we went directly to Congressman Burleson's office and filmed a 40-minute interview with Congressman Burleson, Bob Salas. He's only spoken with one other member of Congress, and that was Congresswoman Mace, and that film is out there. Tyler Roberts put that together, and it's out there. It lasted about 30 minutes, and she indicated she was interested in those witnesses, but then she stepped back for a while. It's okay. Now he was going to get a meeting with Burleson. It lasted 40 minutes, but it got really cool because Tyler, who helped set this up, poor guy, he came down with a pretty damn nasty virus, and so he could not come. But I was able to get Danny Sheehan's videographer to step in, and which he did. And so what we ended up having, which was beyond what Tyler was able to do, is we ended up doing this interview. It was professional lighting, which Burleson actually keeps in his office for such occasions, as well as a CK 3-camera shoot, right? In other words, absolute top quality. And that is what got filmed. Tyler will get a copy of that. But because this was Dan Sheehan's videographer, the New Paradigm Institute is getting a copy of it, and it's going to be spreading that baby everywhere. I'm going to get a copy and spread it. There were a lot of people in the room at the time, including Danny Sheehan and Robert Salas and his wife and me and the chief of staff of Burleson. It was a packed room, and this interview was done just after the hearing was done. And so that is now going to become an aspect of what happens next. It's going to play a role in helping maybe get the hearing we want, and also maybe getting the UAP Disclosure Act. Now, I also tried to set up a meeting with Congressman Bassett. It still could happen because Bob Salas and his wife don't go back until Friday. But if it doesn't, we'll do it the next time. And I'm also trying to ultimately get a meeting with Anapolina Luna. These are the four. I call them the four truth tellers of the Truthopolis. Truthopolis, yeah. Mace, Luna, Burleson, and Burchett. And so let me just close that. Sorry. And my focus has been on them. Right. They are the ones that are taking us to the promised land, and my focus is on them. And so ultimately, I think Bob will get a meeting with all of them. And this is going to be key to getting confirming that we're going to get the next hearing. Hopefully, will be the nuke tampering witnesses.
Okay, can I stop for a second?
Yeah.
This is an important question. I don't know if we'll get a chance to get back to it in this context, but we're talking about possibly Salas, and I believe Salas had talked about coming up, being abducted later on. At least the story came out. You've got people like Mario Woods. There hasn't been a person, an experiencer, contactee, abductee, whatever term you want to use for it. There hasn't been one in the hearing, in any of the hearings yet. Is that just a bridge too far, or is that, what is the issue with that? Because Mario and Bob Salas, those are definitely very credible.
There are lots of credible contactees. Okay, but
right.
No, we have to stay in the lane here. All right, that is a whole nother massive.
So just like another level,
truth massive, right? And you just can't open the door and say, "Oh yeah," and then shut it. No, so no, that's not going to come up. And that's not that Bob talks about it, and I'm not going to deny it if somebody brings it up. But
I thought after Grush that the door would be open because of all the stuff that Grush brought in.
He brought in a lot of stuff, but we don't want to get into contact yet. So,
okay.
we got Robert Salas, firsthand witness to the shutdown of nukes at Malmstrom. We have a firsthand witness shutdown at nukes at Minot about 6 months earlier, right? And we've got, of course, Bob Jacobs, whose name also came up, very important. Robert Jacobs, famous for the film he did of the tampering with the warhead with an actual saucer flying around. He's never testified, but his name came up again. Progress, okay.
Right.
And so he would come and testify about that. Now, given that Grush and Elizondo say they've actually seen that film, which of course has never been released after it was taken out of the room, there's a realistic possibility that that film could be included in that hearing. Now, imagine that. Imagine Bob Jacobs, Professor Bob Jacobs, unimpeachable witness. He's testifying as part of a 4 or 5 nuclear tampering panel to the task force. And now let us look at the video that he shot back in, I forget, it's a long time ago. And we see that rocket that was a film with the special cameras, right? The high quality cameras, because he's filming something going 8,000 miles an hour. And that thing is going up. And all of a sudden the craft comes in, the saucer craft, not some ball of light. It's cruising around, dancing around it, shooting lasers at it, and it knocks the warhead off. And people get to see that real-time broadcast under oath. That when I say that the most important panel has got to be the nuke, I am serious about that. Yeah. If somebody could come in with tech and bodies and everything else, and I don't know, yeah, okay, but let's be real here. In terms of the proper process, this hearing really takes us to another place. And then but then there is another aspect to the nuclear shutdown witness approach. And one of the reasons why the Department of Defense has ghosted these men for 30 years, has put this ridiculous article in the Wall Street Journal, which is a complete lie, in order to kind of slow things down. And then is this. All of the security people, with the exception of Mario Woods, whose story I need to get more familiar with, but by and large, for every officer down in the silo, there was about four security people up top. So we're talking 6 to 8 younger men, not officers, and their job was to secure the silo. At every one of these events, you got Minot, you got 2 events, Maelstrom, and some others. You're talking about 18, 20 security guys that were all dispersed afterwards. NDA stuff, and dispersed to the far parts of the world. A number of them were sent to Vietnam. That's particularly nasty, but they were weapons qualified. All of those, none of those is testified either. And they're younger. Many of the nuke officers have died, but the guys upstairs were probably in general 5, 6, 8 years younger. They're in their 70s, but they've never come forward except Mario. And they didn't go well for him. So if we get to that level, we're able to hold that hearing, and that hearing takes place. What comes next, maybe, is we may see a half a dozen 20 of these men coming forward and say, okay, I'm willing to testify. I was there that night. I saw the craft that was there the whole time when the missiles were shut down. I saw the craft that actually came down and crushed a fence in another incident. They actually crushed the fence in another incident. I was there when we were running around like crazy, and one of my colleagues was so upset that he literally crawled up in a ball and leaned against a wall. This kind of witness could turn up. And of course, it hasn't yet, but that was where. So the Department of Defense knows if this hearing happens, it's over. That's it. That's why they are really taking risks to try to stop it. And so when they called up the Wall Street Journal and said, hey, would you like to get a pretty cool story about this thing that's happening now, right? You're hearing so much about. We got a bunch of insiders. Be happy to talk to you. So they sent over two, I don't think they're particularly experienced national security writers. I actually interviewed with one of them. I'm the one that gave him the contact information to get in touch with Bob Salas. And they gave him this wonderful story. And it's a lie. I mean, but most of it is a lie. Some of it's actually true, but misrepresented. And the whole point of the story was to try to undermine the whole subject in general. That's a laugh. But really, the attack was against the nuclear shutdowns. They tried to explain it away as a test that we were doing multiple times to see if we could shut down the witnesses. I mean, I'm sorry, shut down the missiles. And that's what they mistook it for. And we used a giant device we constructed near the base, and the guys thought that was a glowing object over the base, and it goes on. And in order to do it, they would have probably had to wipe out all those circuits within like 100 square miles. I mean, that's how awful it was. But then they attacked Bob, and basically saying that he had it wrong and so forth and so forth. Bob wrote a very good counter article and submitted it, rebuttal to the Wall Street Journal, which wouldn't publish it because the DOD probably said, please don't publish the rebuttal. Other rebuttals turned up elsewhere. Why did they go to that length to put an article out, which is they're going to be living that piece of crap down for as long as they're publishing?
Right.
Because a nuke witness panel testifying, just the basic ones I can conceive of. It's ball game. And if I'm the president and I'm not disclosing shortly after that, I don't have very good advisors. I'm happy to join the team, but whatever. And so this is a big deal. And so we made progress here. In addition, Congressman Burleson, who is the perfect guy to really be front and center on this, right? He is down to earth, very likable, authentic, very safe in his district. He won with a 73% vote. Okay, which means he's not just popular in Southern Missouri. He's like godlike. He's beloved, right? So, and he's doing a great job. So, the night before the hearing, he held a reception at the Capitol Club soiree, right? And there was about 60 of us, 70 of us there, all dressed up. We had some hors d'oeuvres, full bar. And it was a hell of a night. And there's some photos that are going to turn up on the web. Okay. And so that was his way of kind of letting people come and connect and interact with them. And that's what you do if you want to build the relationships that will ensure that you're going to succeed. So that happened the night before. There's other things going on from other organizations, other processes and so forth. And so the truth embargo is now being surrounded in Washington, D.C. from many directions, but we're not quite there. So right now, the two things that I'm most focused on is a nuke witness panel and the UAP Disclosure Act. And I'll be talking about that ad nauseum going forward for a while. These are the two big plays. But there's other things going on that are relative to the Citizens for Disclosure program that is being run by the New Paradigm Institute. And there's several other, Citizens for Disclosure things happening. I can't keep up with it. So again, it was quite a 2-day period there. And if you want to go into some of the other witnesses,
let me step in and ask a question, because you brought it up earlier. We're talking about witnesses. We're talking about the hearings and the way it's formatted, where each one of the representatives get like 5 minutes, and asking questions. The people get 5 minutes, the witnesses to do their statements. That just doesn't seem like enough time to tell their story. So is there a different way of formatting this in the House, or are we stuck with what we're stuck with?
No, there's, you can always tell your story to a fine journalist, for a major paper or the New York Times, whatever, and get it out there. I mean, that's not their job. But by the way, okay, frequently they went over the 5 minutes, right?
I noticed that.
But nobody said anything. Why? Because, and they mentioned this, they talked about this. This is a truly nonpartisan issue, and then they are working together and they're loving it. All right. And so since it's not a death match, right? Whatever. And so if somebody goes over, it's okay. It's all right. No big deal. Whereas the other ones, like, yeah, you're done. Now I got to come in and bomb. So that was notable. And so it flowed. They were able to submit written statements. They were able to then pretty much speak to those, and they got to answer a lot of questions. So plenty of information, but that format is key, because if you don't have something relatively structured, it does not go well.
Right.
But in a friendly setting, you get more information than you do in a contentious setting. There's been a couple of recent hearings in the Senate. Go watch them, and you'll see the other way that it's done. Okay.
Even the JFK hearing.
I didn't want to name names. I'm just saying that,
I'm just saying the JFK hearing, there was definitely some that were there strictly for political reasons. In this hearing, there were 2 times that it happened, and we'll leave names out, but it was brief and it didn't last. The second one was just almost, it was so small, it was almost not noticeable. So I thought
only one that stood out. One that stood out. It was a mistake. This person is going to get flack over this appropriately, but yet absolutely the right of the member to do that, and that's part of it. But it was like it stuck out like a sore thumb. And what's important about that is not so much that it happened or you like it or not like it, but because how it stuck out, because it was so obvious, and because people are loving this, working together, bipartisan process underway on what is probably the biggest issue in the world. These people are willing to fight to the death over some small stuff you wouldn't believe, right? I mean, they're threatening to throw punches on some issue that's nothing. This is the biggest, and maybe that's the way it should be. An issue of this magnitude and importance almost demands that you put your stuff aside, because most of these people are not as awful as you think. They're not as nasty as you think. Actually, in private, you're going, pretty cool. But they have to play these roles. And the reason is our political system is significantly defective now. And the upholding of Citizens United virtually guaranteed the system was going to basically blow up and collapse. And so now, because of Citizen United, getting elected is not about getting an opportunity to serve. It is an absolute existential fight to try to get enough money so you can maintain power. And as a result, the Congress is just a mess. And in many cases, they don't want to have to do this. They don't want to be this way. They have no choice. And that's where one of the biggest mistakes the Supreme Court ever made, maybe the biggest, if you view long term, they've ever made, and not yet looking like that's going to change.
So what's next? I mean, the one thing I like about you, Stephen, I'll just say this, is that you're optimistic. And it's contagious. Sometimes people get irritated with optimistic people, but I'll take an optimist over a pessimist every day, because in the fight like this, which is leading into my question, how close do you think we are to disclosure?
This I talked about this forever. It's not like a race, where you're predicting how exactly how many seconds the winning horse is going to take to run around the track. It's a constant flow of possibilities and circumstances, which can get favorable and unfavorable and what have you. And there's circumstances sometimes when it's absolutely impossible, and then there's circumstances when it's very possible. All right. And so how do you describe? So let's say things are pretty favorable. Let's say that there's no obvious barrier why a head of state, but let's focus on our president, couldn't come out in the truth embargo. Well, if that's true, it could happen immediately, couldn't it? It could happen tomorrow. All right. But there have been times, and we are in one of those times now where I can say it can definitely happen tomorrow. Well, actually, there's been very few. This is the closest we've ever been to disclosure by the president, and also to nuclear war, and that's not an accident. All right. So back in the Clinton administration, there were some favorable things going on, but I never really said, "Oh yeah, Clinton could walk out tomorrow and disclose." I mean, technically, this is true, and yet it wasn't going to happen. But just as we're the closest to nuclear war than ever, but how could we possibly predict? Well, then it could be tomorrow. Obviously, it could be tomorrow. We're also this closest disclosure, and enough has been accomplished. Enough of a platform has been built. The president could walk out tomorrow, or give a quick statement from the Oval Office, no audience. Yeah, we're not alone. I know you want more. We're going to put a lot of experts out available to work with the press and so forth, and we're going to support the UAP Disclosure Act. And thank you so much. Now I need to get some sleep. Done. Or he could bring in a select group of press, maybe 10, 15 into the East Room, and come out there and announce it to them. Right? We're not alone, or however he wants to put it. And I can't take your questions now, which he shouldn't do. Do not take questions after you make that statement. Okay. Right. You don't want to do that, because you don't have the answers to 1 million of them, maybe a couple, but 1 million you don't have the answer to. But we will start providing the opportunity to interact with the top people on this, and we're going to have more hearings and so forth. He could do it tomorrow, and it would be fine. It would be absolutely fine. The world's not going to end, but I'll tell you something that does happen. If our president steps out tomorrow and finally puts an end to the fundamental lie that, yeah, we are engaged by non-human tech, non-humans, right? From somewhere. He doesn't have to say where. I know where, but that's okay. He doesn't have to say where. But he's ended the truth embargo. Right. And he may confirm that we haven't, you have not been told that before, because national security required that. And thank you so much, and goes back. And that's it. The moment he does that, he gets one of the greatest, if not the greatest, political legacy of any head of state, emperor, king, tribe leader, whatever. It's going to be hard for anybody to make a case that some other head of state has done something more profound than this. It is a legacy that he will take with forever and continue on after he departs. History cannot overlook it, and they will talk about it. It will be part of history forever. It also is probably a guaranteed Nobel Prize. I'm serious. I think that's a guaranteed Nobel Prize. You just cannot do that and have that. That's always there. So I just mentioned this. I'm not throwing shade at all. I'm simply saying now, but I need to add something else. If another head of state, Macron is kind of in a weak position right now. Sturmer's got his problems. And of course, China wants to own the solar system. And some others, another head of state comes out and says, yes, we are not alone, provides some rather impressive evidence, right? Puts out some stuff and so forth. That head of state gets the legacy. Right. Coming in, you get squat.
Right. Well, let me ask this question.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people are starting to get frustrated with Congress. I thought this hearing will help alleviate some of that frustration. There were a couple spats going on. You know about them. I'm not going to mention names as well. But so the question I have for you is, I think this helped restore some of the trust in Congress because of some of what was said by Borland, what was said by Nutelli, where they talked about the actual craft, and one that's the size of a football field, and the second one's even larger, and then to hear about the light that, well, all of a sudden when it showed up, it was a triangle, and he couldn't explain,
Good stuff. Yeah. We had many reports of wild stuff like that, but it's nice to have it under oath. Always nice to have it under oath.
A lot of people have that same exact wild story, so maybe it's not as wild as what people want to say it is. But my question for you is, and I think a lot of people are asking this, is disclosure, when it finally comes, is it going to be because of Congress? Is it going to be because of some kind of civilian effort? Or is there a possibility that NHI, whoever they are, they're just finally going to say it's time?
Look, I've simplified that. I did this 20 some years ago.
Okay.
I define disclosure, and so it's my definition. You want to define it some other way, I forget about it.
I'm just asking. How do you think it's
going
going to happen? I'm asking you.
Disclosure is capital D. It is a moment in time. It is an event, and it is when the first head of state finally ends the embargo by confirming it's not. It is in fact true, and to the extent that people are a little skeptical, when the other heads of state join in, it's game over. So that's disclosure with capital D. And that has to come from the president. If it's not coming from a head of state, it's not the disclosure I'm talking about. Now, if the ETs want to put 100 ships over, around, ships over every capital in the world, that's still not disclosure. It's one scary thing, right? But it's not disclosure. The disclosure follows when the head of states come forward. Well, you've probably seen all these ships up there, and it turns out, we're not alone, and we kind of knew it. And I don't know, I was hoping this wouldn't happen, but there they are, and that will not go well. No Nobel Prizes will be given out. Maybe they'll give one to the ETs. So we don't want that is a version of catastrophic disclosure, I can assure you.
Right. Do you have your bunker built? Have you done that yet?
I can't afford a bunker, but they're building plenty of bunkers. But it's not over the ETs. It's not over the ETs. It's over a couple of other things, not the least of which is nuclear war. And they're building lots of bunkers. And again, that's not a good thing, and that's not a good sign, right? The rich are buying. The rich are buying. The really wealthy are buying. They may already have a private jet, but they're having to get another kind of private jet because it has to have the ability to make it far enough to where they need to go, right? And so you can't, if nuclear war is about to happen, you can't make a couple of stops, right? So they're getting these longer distance private jets. They're buying homes in other countries and building massive bunkers underneath, deluxe bunkers, of course, with all the amenities. That is a clue to the rest of us poor slobs that things are getting a little dicey here. All right. So let me continue and get back to something you said. Another thing that was I want to say this before I forget is that Nusatelli's testimony. A lot of people may not know this. It's important testimony. It's these events in Vandenberg, right? Significant sightings and so forth, and they happened. Back a ways. Vandenberg is where they tested the ICBM missiles. And so when they shut down the nukes, what they did was shut down the missile. Okay. Bob thinks and they think the likely way they did it is a particular special signal. They were sent through all of 60 feet of girth and huge cables, and it got into the guidance system and kind of tweaked it, and that automatically shut the missiles down. Again, we can't do that. But Vandenberg is where they tested the ICBMs. And so you could say that the sightings over there were pretty much connected to things they were doing over the missile bases. And that's something a lot of people don't know about. And there have been many things happening over military facilities. In Bob's book, Bob Salas's book, Faded Giant, he goes in about 14 in depth, right? With docs and everything else. Just 14. There's many more than that. And that doesn't include most of the rest of the world. A couple of sightings in Europe, events in Europe. They have been engaging our nuclear facilities vigorously since we dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And as I've said in my presentations, you need to understand that event properly. You really need to grasp it and not just dismiss it. Obviously, it was a big deal. Ended the war, but we spent a vast fortune in one of the biggest scientific programs of all time, probably still the biggest, and in a very short amount of time. In addition to solving the problem of how to build a bomb, we were able to massively produce enough, in a very, very difficult way, produce enough plutonium and so forth to make them work. And then test it, and it worked. And then the question is what to do with it. And there's three things we could have done. And this doesn't really come up. Oppenheimer's an unbelievable movie. This doesn't come up in Oppenheimer to the degree it should have. But if they ever do another movie more robust about this incredible period, they need to get much deeper on this. Fact is that we could have simply informed the Japanese we've got this, sent them a video of the Trinity test, and said, "Look, you don't want us to drop these on Tokyo or something. Please, let's just end this thing now." The second thing they could have done is drop it pretty close to shore, maybe even Tokyo Bay. That would have been pretty nasty, but nevertheless, just demonstration of power. Would have been impressive. They could have done that, or they could have dropped it on a city. Now, the hardliners in the military at that time still pretty upset over Pearl Harbor. Let's face it, not a good thing. They pressed to drop it on cities. The scientists pressed that either to do the other two, and they sent letters, but history has shown that maybe those letters were never delivered to Truman. Again, we need more information on this. We need to really get it out. This is a seminal moment in the history of the human race when we had the decision to drop nuclear bombs on just men, women, and children and vaporize them or not. We chose to do that. We chose to do what I just mentioned. And the ETs are watching. They're always watching. And they took away what they needed to take away from that, is that we are incredibly dangerous, violent, and destructive. We kill our own species in mass numbers, and we're not going to change anytime soon, except now we can really kill each other in numbers. That was the message they clearly got. And guess what? Within a very short amount of time, there's ET's craft flying all over the place. Why? What's going on? Well, I think we know now. It was time to take things to another level. It was time to engage us in a way that they had not before. I don't know about ancient times. Doesn't matter anymore. That was a long time ago. And so the whole modern age of contact and the modern age of the modern age of UFOs is pretty much centered around the nuclear weapons and the nuclear use of those weapons, use of those weapons. And that's one of the most important things about this subject that I have devoted myself to, is not writing books about it. I let Richard write those, but just telling everybody and trying to get the message across to regular people. You have to understand, this is kind of what's going on. If you want to know why they're here, what's going on, why they go there, why they do this, then you have to ask yourself, the nukes, what does that mean? What has come from that? What's the risk and everything else? And when you put them together, it all starts to make sense. All right. And so when they tried to get nuclear arms reduction, and they made a little progress, decent progress, but not enough by any means. And eventually they stopped trying at all. The START treaty was suspended. You could say that one of the reasons was that, again, you take away the nukes and now you don't have mutual assured destruction, and we're going to kill ourselves with tanks and bioweapons or whatever the hell. Though bioweapons are also considered, weapons of mass destruction. But there was another factor in there. And that was, there was a motivation for all the nations, particularly China, Soviet Union, Russia, and us, also keep them and not totally get rid of them, because we might want to need them against our potential interstellar enemy. That's a legitimate point. We're concerned that we still hate each other. We might have a war, but then there are these guys, right? So let's just keep it at 12,000, but keep building more powerful, missiles or whatever the hell, right? I get it. It's not illogical. So when they start shutting our missiles down, one of the messages they're sending, if that's one of the reasons why you simply can't get rid of these damn things, meaning you're just going to keep them just in case we decide to get nasty. You're wasting your time, guys. You're wasting your time, right? We could care less about these missiles because we could shut them down anytime we want. There's probably other things we could do. And so again, you see how this connection is moving forward in time. It's literally winding around itself. And then you've got messages being given to contactees, school children, about the risk of nuclear destruction in the future, like planning that in their head. So maybe they'll help spread the word. I don't know. This is the dominant factor of the modern UAP era. The other factor is of a different type altogether, and that is contact and genetic work. But that's not about a message to us. It's about something they need, and we know that, and one day we'll have to address it.
Well, let me ask a couple questions. One is, and this has been speculated, it's not something I would want to bank on, but do you think if one of us gets stupid enough to start sending nuclear weapons at others, do you think that they will intervene to save the planet? Maybe not necessarily to save us, or are we just, I mean, I don't want to take that risk, but I'm asking the question anyway.
It's a simple answer. Could they? Yes. Is it a good idea to factor that into anything we do, any policy? Oh, no.
I wouldn't want to.
Is it a good idea to preach it? God, no. Why? Because every person that finally gets of the frame of mind that, if we launch the missiles, they'll stop it. That person is not going to invest much time, money, or energy into trying to get the START treaty going again or reducing the nukes we have. And so if you're wrong, well, it doesn't play out well. There is no upside.
It's a bad gamble.
Playing that game. Absolutely. It's a terrible gamble. It's awful. It's like playing Russian roulette with a 2-cylinder gun. So I know. So I'm saying, hey, that it's you can't rule it out, but forget about it. Just put it aside. Okay.
Here's my second question.
Yeah.
They obviously they have seen what our nuclear weapons can do. Why do they continue to go to our nuclear sites? Is it to see our progress, or is there another reason for that? See how our nuclear weapons are progressing, or is there a separate purpose for that, in your opinion?
Well, they've actually gone past that. Again, the kinds of things that were happening back then are not happening now. The shutdowns are not taking place. How long that shutdown program went on, we don't know, because after Minot and 2 Maelstrom events, I'm sure the Air Force got wise and go, okay, look, this is a problem. And so now they get a whole thing together. Like the moment they find out, they swoop in and they lock everything down so that nothing's getting out. So they might have had 4 or 5 other events. There was an event about 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, where it was announced that a whole bunch of missiles went down, and they attributed to a power thing or something. I don't know what, or a computer glitch. And I immediately wondered, had they just made another move there? I don't know. And that immediately faded out. It's worth investigating. But I think they do tend to turn over. Well, let me put it this way. Things have gone to another level. I mean, they made their points back then, good. But then they've escalated. And one of the most significant probably the most significant escalation. But before I give you this, let me go back and make another point, because they tie together. One thing that people maybe do not have not connected the dots on is that the Minot event, where the missiles were shut down 10, was in 66. The 2 Maelstroms events, where 10 each, were shut down 8 months apart. That was in 67. And so these 2 very profound events took place just about 3.5 years after what? Take a guess.
3.5 years. Not I'm off on that one. Kennedy assassination. Okay. I don't know.
The Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh,
when we almost had a nuclear war. When we almost decided to bomb Cuba, not knowing that they already had some operational nukes there, which they would have fired immediately in Florida, and Disney World would have never been the same. And so
that was a softball. I missed it.
Yeah. So I don't see that as I see that's not a coincidence.
Right.
We almost had it, and about 3 years go by, and they've made the decision. Okay, look, we gotta do something here. These idiots, and so they do that. Okay, now let's jump forward. The overall nuclear risk of nuclear war is now is actually the biggest it's ever been. Everybody agrees. That's all. Nobody that doesn't think that way. By accident, by intention, by miscalculation, a couple of tactical nukes, who will care? And meanwhile, this issue has been advancing. I mean, really advancing. There's no question. We've made unbelievable progress in the last 7 years. Okay. But we still haven't gotten disclosure. And so about a year ago, well, over a year ago, about maybe 15, 16 months ago, something started happening. And it was, I say it is, maybe others would disagree. I believe it's the biggest UFO flap of all time. Now, most people know what a UFO flap is, but it's a bunch of sightings happening kind of in the same time frame, right? There's a lot and they go on for a certain amount of time. That's called a UFO flap. Obviously, not the same thing as a couple of sightings outside of town that get reported in the news. This is a lot of things happening at once. That's a UFO flap. The flyover of Washington, D.C. in July of 1952 was a UFO flap. And there have been others. I believe the biggest of all time started about a year and a half ago. Things started flying around ships that we were not shooting at, which is not the way it works. Okay, you want to fly some stuff around one of our naval ships, they will blow you to hell. I mean, they'll first give you a chance to get out of here, and then they will blow you to hell. We didn't do it. Okay, and then they started flying over military bases. Now, I say flying. What was mostly what we were seeing was another way these entities display themselves. There's two fundamental ways. One is craft, and these have been seen. The other is there hasn't been a decision made on the name. Orbs is one name, but that's got problems. Plasma balls is another. I tend to use it, but it's kind of clunky. But balls of light. Interestingly enough, if you were to research this, Google, what is fire like in zero gravity? If you start a fire in zero gravity, right? There's something fire, you know what happens? It becomes a ball of light. Okay. So what does that mean? I don't know. Point is that I'll call them plasma balls. I believe, and we've been seeing them forever. The Foo Fighters were this. The things that flew over Washington were not craft, they were this. And the things that were turning up en masse 16 months ago over this military and that military base, and generally, usually a facility of some kind, not just hanging out in the woods, right? Where it would be interesting, but not that big a deal. But if they're flying over a military base and you're not shooting them down, that is a big deal. In other words, you're guaranteed attention. And this went on month after month after month. But it was getting some attention. Films were being put up right after on X, right? This group and that group, 6, 7 at a time. But it wasn't until they got to New Jersey before it became a really big thing. Because let's face it, the real action starts in Jersey. So they started flying over stuff in Jersey and became the Jersey Light. And that became a huge thing. And the government had to deal with it. And the government really couldn't deal with it. It was awful. It was pathetic. And so, again, I'm saying that this is one of the ways they are able to manifest. I believe they are unarmed, unmanned. These are not manned. They're controlled. And the Foo Fighters are like this. And so this goes all the way back. They're still around in this form. And so we've got Foo Fighters all over the place. The government can't explain it. It's driving the government nuts. It becomes a huge story. Hundreds of articles are written. 6 years into this 7-year process that was starting to get punched back on. In other words, it was getting slowed down. The DOD was pushing back. And I think they goosed the whole process. They said, okay, we're going to have to do something again. So we're going to put a flap up there. We're going to let all you people with 300 million cell phones and good cameras film the whole damn thing and drive your government nuts, which we did, right? And that eventually they stopped. All right. Okay, fine. But again, the point was made, I think. So that's another way that's another aspect of what is going on. They are not completely absent of this process. They do what they do when they want to. But if you look at things I think the proper way, you can kind of see why and make the connection. All right. So I think that was the point I was making. There might have been something else I recall, but
okay. Well, you've been around long enough. Are drones the new swamp gas? Do you think that's what this is going to be the coverall excuse for anything in the sky that they can't explain? It's a drone.
No, it's not swamp gas. That was different, but Well, actually,
I mean, like that.
it's not too bad, but it's a huge, bigger thing than the swamp gas thing. No, I don't think so. But drones were used to try to get through this problem. The government was faced with this problem. What are you going to say? You know it's happening. The people are filming it. What are you going to do? You could say it's ours. Then they're going to want to know, well, how are we controlling all these plasma balls like that? Do we have that kind of tech? Can we do that? So so they try to just ignore it. But then, as I say, it got to New Jersey. That's a big deal. All right. And so they were being asked questions about it. These questions are on film. You can see people, the reporters ask him, and the answers are like, yeah, are you kidding me? I mean, it's sad. And so it took a while, but eventually they came up with a solution. And that the best they could do was we can't say they're ours. We can't say they're another nation's, because both of those are not good answers. That's going to cause big trouble. And we can't say they're ETs because, well, that's kind of going to be disclosure. It's going to lead to disclosure right away. So what they decided to do was mask it, which is, it's only going to be so effective to a certain point, but mask it. So if the phenomenon is happening over a base, send up a bunch of drones. Our drones, right? Good stuff. We got some pretty cool drones, right? I'm not talking about a bunch of Amazon drones. I'm talking about drones. Make sure they get seen, right? And so people are seeing some drones. Big stuff, craft, whatever, like that. Drones, whatever. Small, big, doesn't matter.
Muddying the water.
They're seeing the plasma balls, right? They're seeing that stuff. But then the government just says it's all drones.
Right.
And so that was a masking event. Not to say that, well, they're not really saying those plasma balls are drones. They're just saying it's drones, and they're letting you make the connection. And it sort of worked. It sort of worked. For a lot of the press, that's all they needed. They just needed a little bit of cover. Hope the damn things would stop. Well, they did. And so we don't talk about drone swarms anymore. This will go down as one of the last gasp acts of the truth embargo. And it also goes down, if it is what I think it is the ETs really putting the pressure on. All right. This is not an event. This is not a flyover over Washington in 52, which was also designed. See, you got 5 years after Roswell, and the decision was made, well, let's don't talk about this right away. And by 52, they weren't talking about it. They didn't get it out. They were still denying whatever was coming out. Wasn't a lot. Meanwhile, the Cold War is starting to develop. You start to see the arms race get going. And so the ETs fly over Washington, D.C., maybe to trigger the government to confirm the ET presence, because that's probably in our best interest. Maybe the Cold War would have been nothing like it was if we had gone there. And it went on for about 9 days, 10 days. And what we did with that is it was a temperature inversion. Quickly, let's get a panel together. That was a Robertson panel, and get a conclusion out there that will buy us some more time. And the conclusion was internally that the phenomenon is not a threat, which means that it's not us. Why do you care if it's a threat or not a threat if it's us? But the public's interest is the problem, and therefore we are going to have to deal with the public's interest. And thus the formal truth embargo got underway vigorously with lots of funding and every tool they had in their toolbox. So that was then. Then you've got the massive flap of last year, not 9 days, 10 days. Went on for 12 months, I think, 12, 13 months. So this dynamic is going on. And I imagine the guys over at the Pentagon, it's just driving them nuts. I mean, they can get the Wall Street Journal to put some stupid article out, and then they can, pat themselves on the back, but they can't do the ETs to do jack. And they know it. And so they're basically just kind of buying time. So now we're back on track again. We're making progress. We're getting more news again, but we do have a huge amount of distractions, both domestically and foreign. And so it's not running away, but clearly the disclosure, the secrets panel has made it clear they are not going to be deterred by whatever is going on. They're absolutely determined to move forward on this regardless. They've made that clear, and that's significant progress. And so the ET seemed to kind of set back, just kind of watching now, I think. You're looking good. No problem. And if somehow we derail this thing again, for whatever the hell reason, they'll probably come up with something later, early 2026, and pop us again, because they are determined that we do something. And it's not like we're just going to then turn off, get rid of the nukes simply because they did that stuff. No, that's not going to happen. They know it. So what is it they want us to do? There's only one thing on the list. They want us to disclose. They want the government to tell everybody on the planet, all 8 billion people, that they're not alone.
Why would they choose us to do it over them? Is it because it would be less panicky if it was coming from our leader than all of a sudden them landing on the White House lawn or something like that? Would that be the reason?
Well, look, you got 9 nations with about 12,000 nukes, and not counting how many the MERVs, I think, makes that numbers bigger. But whatever, they hate each other. They're bombing each other really right now, and suddenly you show up and said you're not alone. That's more likely to trigger nuclear events. Obviously, I mean, people are going to panic. The government's going to go nuts. They're going to start shooting at whatever, it could literally start a nuclear war. And so God bless them. They're not going to do that. They're doing a lot, but they're not doing that. They're doing just enough to keep things moving, right? When they flew over Washington in 1952, how many nukes were there? I don't know. It might have been 10. I should check on it. It's not a big number, I assure you. And there's mostly testing going on, but there's some nukes being made, sure, but not a huge number. It was just 10. Then we got to 86,000, and that was around mid-'80s, about 86,000. And it's worth checking to know what the UAP activity was during that period. But at 86,000, I mean, we really are maxed out, okay? And interestingly enough, one of the reasons they may not have done something to sort of bump us again is that at the time, this is kind of mathematically silly, but at the point we peak nuked, which is we hit peak nukes, that was mid 1980s, about 1996. We were the Soviet Union was about to go down. It was about to collapse. So we were about to maybe go to a very better place, different space. And so within a couple of years, the Soviet Union shuts down and we entered the post-Cold War era, at least the initial one. And so in that sense, we were moving in the right direction. And after that, we started getting some treaties. And as you know, we had some treaties that have reduced the nukes. So we've been kind of making progress. Okay, making progress. And so we weren't seeing these kinds of dramatic events in the 90s, by and large, or so forth, that I can recall. And maybe I'm missing something. And it goes on through the 90s, and everything. You're going to get into the aughts. Okay. And then starting the beginning of the 21st century, government started making some big mistakes, bad mistakes. Everybody was at fault. And essentially around then, the Second Cold War began. Right. And the race to where we are now began. And war after war after war started taking place. And the whole nuclear thing started escalating. The number of nukes didn't go up, but the potential for nukes and some testing occurred. You had some nukes developing in countries that are extreme states and all that. So things are starting to go to hell. And it's been going that way last 20 years. Escalating. That's right. So in that period, by and large, no major intervention that I can see. Because while things were going south again, after 2000 is the beginning of what I call the reductive activist movement, where more people are getting involved. Awareness is going up. I joined in 96. Greer was doing his thing as early as like 1989. He was having some progress. And so and then the Rockefeller Initiative in the mid 1990s. And so we're starting to see in the 2000s some positive stuff developing on this issue as well. And so it seemed like they weren't going to do anything dramatic. But then 20 some years go by, right? And as we're starting to maybe get where we need to go, all of a sudden things start really going to hell. Okay. And the I guess what was the primary thing? It was 2022. You've got the war begins in Europe. All right, major problem. But we also had some serious other events, and things are looking a little dangerous. And so, but the issue continues to advance. But definitely, there was concerns, huge concerns, and of course, it was all of these things that took us to the point where the atomic scientists put ultimately the doomsday clock to, I don't know, 55 seconds or whatever to midnight. And then we have this event starting in 2024.
Yeah, Dan asked a good question. Do you think there's any possibility that they may have stopped some accidents from happening, nuclear accidents?
I have no way to know. I have no way to know. Again, it would be nice to. We have no way of knowing, so we got to put a pin in it and put it aside. Later on, happy to ask them. Right, it'd be nice if they did, but I wouldn't count on any of that.
And we know that some have happened, so that's going to be the question mark
on
the other side.
They fly around
some, but not the others.
Yeah, they fly around volcanoes that seem to be active. Are they doing anything? I don't know. They may turn up over a nuclear event, Fukushima, whatever. Does that mean they're doing anything? No, we don't know that. Would they be interested? Yeah, they would. Again, when it comes to nukes, the ultimate would be a volcano with a nuclear weapon in it, right? They would really show up for that. And so I don't take much away from that. But I'm simply saying that I can kind of see why they made a major move in early 2024, roughly. And suddenly we have this massive flap that goes on and on and on because things are starting to get the pushback against this issue was happening, and also the risks were getting higher on our side. And so that was the last major intervention that I can point to, and I think it's the biggest UFO flap in history. We shall see, and then we keep going forward. Because we're in a whole different place. We're in a much more robust place now. We can't just be set back by a Robertson panel or the Brookings report or some other nonsense. It's, now even gutting that bill, it's like, we took it. We're back again. We totally trashed the DOD for doing it. This is a different one.
That was a good question that goes along with that. Burleson had mentioned that that there was going to be a deal with it getting through the House, but I don't think he clarified what he was talking about was Burchett's whistleblower protection being added to it. And I think that's what he was saying.
It's Burchett. I don't know about that. Look, first of all, Burchett doesn't have to add it to the NDA. That would be a mistake. It should be a standalone bill.
I think that's what he's trying to do, but maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, so that shouldn't affect the
right. I think he was talking about that's not going to go through because he was pressing for that. He was talking about it being a good law to protect whistleblowers. And then he started talking about the NDAA, and it was just a little bit of confusion for a second there. Okay, is he saying that the NDAA is not going to go through? But I think I finally analyzed it and figured out he was just talking specifically about Burchett's bill to try to protect whistleblowers.
Yeah. So Burchett's bill may not go. The other bill, of course, we're not sure, and that's nothing unusual about that. However, things are moved along. That could easily come back to life. Again, the leading party in this country are the Republicans, and the primary people leading this movement are Republicans. So that's not a trivial matter. Okay, so we'll see. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, hit me with some questions now because I need to.
Okay, I'm got most of them in, but this is one I wanted to get your opinion on. George Knapp was asked the question when he turned in that big stack of documents that he snuck out of Russia that he made copies of, obviously. Yeah. Asked him how much of that was public, and he said about 1%. Do you think that the 99% that's not known will have some kind of impact in helping us get to disclosure? Or
you're talking about 99% of George's documents that he brought back?
Right. He said it hadn't been out in public. And so that's what Luna had asked him. I think it was Luna anyway.
Well, I don't know enough about the provenance there or the history there. He brought them back, and I guess he didn't make them public. He referred to them, though. We know he did it, and he talked about some of the stuff that was in them. I think one of the reasons he said that is they were asked not to do that. The people back in Russia, who, by the way, he also testified to, ultimately they got had problems. Right. Eventually, it was found out, and bad things happened to him. So let's just say that I'm sure eventually we're going to see all those docs. I hope it's while George is still here.
He gave them to the DIA as well. Did you hear him say that? And that was a while back.
Yeah,
and so it's not like they're new, but they're new to Congress and new to the public ever gets it.
It was just like our documents that they're going to be problem, and so they'd rather not get them out. But again, George had them for a while. He could have made copies, and so I'm sure that's a reason why they might kind of be paying attention to what George does. So but he's a journalist. Journalists get in these in-between positions like that. That's what their job is in a sense, but it's a tricky job and it can go bad. So he's handled himself very well. I mean, he's honored his journalist tenets and probably any agreements he had, which is the way it should be. And he's done that for quite a while, but now clearly he understands it's time for me to take it to the next level, and he is. And so that's why he was there. And those that don't know much about George or his history and what he's done, I get it, but please chill. He was the most important witness there for reasons that you may not know about. And let us hope that the impact is what I hope it'll be. All the witnesses are important. They covered a kind of a broad spectrum of issues: whistleblowers, the Vandenberg sightings, which had the nuclear connection, or at least the connection ICBM nukes, missiles that are used for nukes. And you had the fellow from Togo, which is this new organization that's addressing these issues in a more formal way. There are lots of these organizations forming so fast I can't keep up with them. So it was great. A lot of testimony. That's all going to get shared. It's going to be out there, and it's going to have impact. So then what's next? And we know what we want next, and that is the new panel.
Okay, well, let's go a different direction for a second, because I get this from people, and I know you and I are somewhat on the same page. We're not ignoring that there could be bad aliens, NHI out there, but I know people that heard the hearing and they became more afraid because of the way that the narrative was, at least the way they heard the narrative. They took it to be like a threat. Somebody used a comment that there was, evil lurking behind the door. And, it could be talking about, in part, the contractors, but also the fact that I think every one of them, I don't know if George said it or not, but that they were afraid. Now, what you're looking at, Disclosure, is that we're talking good aliens. We're not talking aliens that are going to pillage our country and take it over and we're going to become their slaves or even worse. So
let me clarify. This good bad stuff. This is anthropomorphic. We try to divide things up and we try to look at things in straightforward ways: good, evil, good, bad, whatever. It's much more complicated than that. A better way, because you're going to start applying our concept of what's good,
right,
to other species from other planets. By and large, you're not really where you need to be if you're going to have good outcomes. The best way to look at not just ETs, but humans and countries, and your next door neighbor. Not good or bad, or good or evil. Are you destructive or constructive?
Right.
Right? Do you build or you destroy? And do you build up or you take down? And that ultimately is what's really important. Having a bad attitude or just being nasty is not something that's really a major concern. But being a pyromaniac and liking to burn houses down, that's a problem. So that's where we need to go. I don't have a problem with. There may be countries out there that I really don't like their food. I don't like their attitude. Their religion is a little weird. But if they're not conducting war, if they're not blowing things up, if they're not destroying things, that's pretty good. And if you can have that, then you should be relatively pleased. And so the issue is this: do they destroy? I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it now. Again, it's never simple. They do give some cattle a big problem. They do eliminate cattle. In that they destroy cattle. Now, we can't get too upset about that, because while they have destroyed and killed, I don't know, a couple hundred cattle, we have destroyed millions. I mean, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of cows. They did okay. So I want to get carried away there, but they do that. But they need something. They need blood and tissues. Okay, so it's not awful, is it? All right. If they abduct, or at least they deal with humans in a way that could be called abduction, that is something we would file under not good or bad, but is it destructive? Not much, but it can be destructive in a sense that it can destroy a person's comfort, their balance, their emotional stability. And so that is a destructive act. Okay. So put a pin in that, right? Do they blow things up? No. Do they really interfere with our affairs? No. The crop circles, there are ET crop circles and human crop circles. Most people don't get that now, but the crop circles, they don't lose much crop. You can still harvest most of it, but you do get some, irritating people showing up. But overall, not that destructive. And they create these beautiful, glyphs. People take photos of them, put them up on their refrigerator. So it's hard, not exactly a major destructive thing. All right. Anything else?
Colaris, George Knap, but he even called it an outlier in Brazil, where they seem to be shooting beams at them and stuff like that. But I thought it was interesting when George was talking about the Russian, where the 2 pilots died, 3 of their, I believe, jets were, he's called it stalled. And I thought that was interesting. It wasn't shot down. It literally, whatever defensive action it did, they stopped their motors, jet engines, and they stalled and they crashed. It wasn't like they shot them down. Now, I don't want to, like I said, I want to take away from other people's emotional distress, especially those who've been abducted. I get it. But I think you're right, Steve, in a sense. If you look at the overall narrative and you look at all of the different sightings and the overall evidence, it may be, there may be a section that you could look at and say maybe that's destructive. But I think the overall arching experiences that people have are not destructive.
Again, by human standards, it's not even in the ballpark. It's just hardly measured on the scale. By the way, in the Iranian event, the famous Iranian event, and I forget, was it Jaffe? I forget the Iranian officer that was flying that plane. They shut it down, right? He was at a pretty good altitude, and they shut it down, and he regained control. And that was a famous event. It's been covered. It was testified to a number of times. And so they also turned off some. Maybe it was too low. It was a lower altitude, and so they crashed before they could regain control. Again, didn't blow up, didn't shoot down, just turned off the airplanes, turned off the nukes. You seeing a theme here?
Yeah.
Okay. Theme here.
Yeah.
So messages, not destruction. So the overall compilation of what we'll call destructive activity by the entire ET presence. Let's just go to the 20th century. On a scale of destruction is going to be down here. It's going to be barely recognized. But the total amount of destruction done by humans in any form or fashion, it's up here. Okay, it's like this. And so we are committing destruction off the scale, trying to decide if the ETs are down here doing this, are they good or are they bad? Well, if they got an attitude, right? They don't dress well for dinner or something, they're bad. But no. On the basis of destruction, construction, which is the ultimate, I think, way to look at the universe. Okay, you're either destroying, or if you're destroying, you're raising empathy. If you are building, you are lowering entropy. And everything that we enjoy and have is based upon lowering entropy. All right. In other words, we build systems, we build homes, we build food manufacturing capabilities, we build shelter, we make clothes, we make science, we make tennis rackets so we can play tennis. All these things we make are lowering disorder, meaning it's lowering entropy, right? And making our world a nice place. The moment you go to increasing entropy, which is what destruction does, things go badly. All right. And again, the ultimate, the point is this: the universe is fundamentally by nature always moving towards disorder. And disorder is not a good thing if you're alive, if you're living. And so disorder itself, the basic is moving against us. But we are competing against that and trying to construct. But we also, and maybe it's part of the fact that we are part of nature itself, we come from nature, that if the laws of the universe are always to move towards more disorder, it's not surprising that humans do have a tendency to go there and create a lot of disorder. But we are smart. We're not just particles flying around in a vacuum. We're smart. We have all kinds of capabilities that other matter does not. And so we can decide, no, we don't want to create more disorder. We want to create order. We like that. There's plenty of disorder out there already. No need to add to that. We're still working that out. Okay. We're still working that out. But overall, we're going that way. And the ET presence is not creating destruction or disorder by and large. It is primarily constructive, moving towards something that will be at an even higher level of order, science, and everything else. This is simplistic. Notice I haven't mentioned good or bad.
Yeah, I like the way you.
It's a little easier to understand this.
Yeah, I like the way you excuse me, you explained it, because it tends to be a friction point. The thing that concerns me, and I know some people will disagree with me, and that's okay. I mean, it's okay.
Sure.
Grown people can disagree. Good people can disagree with each other,
and they will.
But one of the things that troubles me is this fear narrative, and it's out there, and I've seen it overtake people. Like when the drones were here, I mean, it was amazing the different scenarios that came out about what the drones were here for. And I'm just like, with their technology, I mean, wouldn't you agree, if they were hostile, if they were destructive, we'll use your word, what are we going to do about it?
Nothing.
So why live in fear of something we can't do anything about? Why not try to, be more optimistic, and especially based on a lot of experience. It's not like it's blind evidence, blind optimism, because there are a lot of experiencers who have had positive experiences. There are some that have had negative, but the people that I've talked to, it's much higher on the at least neutral to positive, and I'll just leave it at that.
Well, we can simplify a little bit. We're not just brains, right? Until we upload our consciousness or whatever into a computer, which probably we will, we're animals, and we have brains, and we have a very substantial system of hormones and so forth and everything else. And so we're emotional. We call that a simple way of putting it. We're emotional. And that's part of who we are. And it's, in order, if you were actually to be able to strip that away, you would be considered a psychopath. So we're emotional. So fear is innate to us. It's fundamental to us. So the idea that we can go there or things take us there, we shouldn't get too upset about that. It's to be expected. All right. And so again, you can absolutely understand with complete clarity the odds of you getting, and I'm about to get on a plane on this Friday or Saturday morning, getting on a passenger plane and not making it to your destination and dying in a plane crash. We know the odds are staggeringly high. You can't. It's just not going to happen. But it could, but it's not going to happen. So intellectually, you're fine, and yet you get on there and it gets a couple of decent bumps, and boom, right? You have fear. That's who we are. And so the idea that this incredible transition underway would not instill fear. Absolutely. It will. And that's okay. It's human. Now, the question is, how do we address it, manage it? How do we deal with it? All right. What is really the concern is false fear, or how would you say, induced fear by third party, that kind of thing. In other words, there's really no reason to be afraid, but somebody is coming up with BS or lies that will generate that. All right. And that's the worst stuff. I mean, that's the fear you got to avoid, because that has taken countries to war and killed millions of people. So with respect to the ET thing, it's not like it's not like there is no basis to raise the concerns. There is, and it is a very profoundly unknown, unusual phenomena, and we always are concerned about the unknown, and so there's going to be fear, and so I'm not overly upset about that. Now, there are people out there that are saying things that induce fear, but they're not saying it to make that they're saying what they believe, and it induces fear. When somebody is really pushing the issue, but you know that while they are aggressively pushing the fact that you need to be scared, but they actually know it's not that bad, but they're doing this because they want to get a certain response, that is wrong. Okay. And you need to call those people out. It's not necessarily easy, but you got to do that. And so I'm not upset with people that raise the matters that could be a concern. They might raise some fear by pointing out the obvious. I'm not upset with David Politis because he's done some significant research, which interpreted a certain way certainly raises the possibility that there's some other types of abductions happening where they take you, but they don't bring you back. I'm not upset with him. Do I believe he's got it, that's it? No, not yet. I got to see more. And if they were taking people and not bringing back, I would say, the first thing I would say, again, because I'm trying to avoid more arbitrary benchmarks, I would say, can we find out how many people they take and bring back? Maybe it's 2 million or 1 million a year. How many people they don't bring back? 200, right? Okay. Again, so you could be one of them, but obviously this is it looked at that way. It's not as bad as it might necessarily be seen. It's a problem. It needs to be addressed. If we ever get open content, let's talk about it. But it is a basis to completely develop a fear-based hypothesis regarding about the ETs? No, it's not. All right. And again, I'm looking for other stuff. If the Dulcie event that Miller talked about, I think it was Miller, or it might have been the other fellow. What's the other fellow? The other guy. There was 2 people back then. It wasn't not Miller. I'm thinking of oh God, again. Anyway, it's the event where the report of accidentally crashing into or stumbling into a base underneath Dulcie, and the ETs weren't expected you. There was a gunfight and we lost. Okay, true? Don't know, right? No idea. But if it happened, okay, let's assess it. We surprised him by suddenly turning up, right? And maybe we fired first because why not? But either way, and it was unfortunate, and some people died. Is that a basis for a fear-based assessment on the ET? No, it's not. All right. So again, these kinds of ways I suggest people approach this, and they'll have a little less struggle with it. And look, if I thought there was a real serious fear issue here and the potential and the likelihood of destruction was high, I wouldn't hesitate. I wouldn't hold back simply because I want disclosure so bad. I would say so.
Right. I think that's a good approach. We're closing in on 2 hours, and one of the things with StreamYard, it will not do the AI clips if I get over 2 hours.
Okay.
And so the hearing, and I think there was some really, really good material. We still got probably another 8 minutes if there's something you really want to hit on for the next 8 minutes.
Let's do some promos. Look, the New Paradigm Institute is got some great programs. Check it out, newparadigminstitute.org. Citizens for Disclosure Project. Also there, and this is me, Paradigm Research Group, but New Paradigm Institute, that's Danny Sheehan, paradigmresearchgroup.org is me. We've got other organizations forming. The UAP Disclosure, oh yeah, I co-founded that. That's a nonprofit as well. All of these are nonprofits. The UAP Disclosure Fund is a nonprofit. The UAP Disclosure Action Fund is a 501c4. So, and I think I've got that right. It could be reversed. But again, nonprofit there. Soul Foundation is, I believe, nonprofit. There's a lot of entities out there that you could support.
Right. Well, can you give some contact information to how people can support, Paradigm Research or the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance if some people maybe want to join it and become aligned with it? Can you give us that information?
Have donation pages. They have donation pages. You just go to the site. They got a donation thing. And they got the whole little module, and you can donate. If some people don't want to do that, they can contact the entity or the head person, which is me or Danny or whatever, and say, look, I want to donate, but I don't want to go through the portal. I want to do just separate, do a straight kind of donate. That's fine. They still get a deduction if they want it.
So what's the latest work with the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance? I know there is a couple movies in the make, or have they come out yet?
Well, we don't make movies, but the people that are part of the networking alliance, they get together and make them. Right. And they will help kind of promote, but we're not a company. We're not in business. We don't get a piece of the action. We're a free networking entity, though the members, the founding members, pay a modest set of dues, $50 a month.
You're connecting people.
Yeah, but no, there's projects happening. There's been a lot of good things going on, and it'll increase as our membership increases. Eventually, we're going to start getting up what I would call some more well-known, I think, people in the business. But we have to earn that. We're not there, but a lot of good's coming from it, and I'm glad we did it. And if we got some serious funding, 20, 30,000, we could hold a reward dinner. There's a lot of things we could do.
It's tax deductible too, right?
What now?
You guys are tax deductible too, right?
Oh yeah, it's also a 501c3.
Yeah.
And was there anything? So there is for those that have the means to support these things, and maybe even substantial means. I didn't get into crypto because I didn't understand blockchain until about 8 years later. And I finally, I get it now, but it was too late. This is the time to do it, because if you like to, if people that support activism or, well-meaning projects, it's nice to do it, but it's really nice if you see things happen, right? If it really affects change and it makes things happen. And boy, we are now set. If we get funding, we're any of these organizations, including Paradigm Research Group, gets funding, we got plenty to do, and things will happen fast, and you will get a bang for the buck, like you could say. We've always been worth funding, but the truth embargo, which has cost the government a lot of money to maintain. They have spent billions on the truth embargo. I can assure you, in so many ways, most will never know. They stigmatized the issue and just made it uncomfortable for people to support this. And it was a brilliant strategy. It worked, no question. All right, and now it's time for us to go. Wait a minute, it's real. More and more people know it's real every day. Well, if it's real, then you must see how important it is. And therefore, boy, this is a place to park your money. Not that all these others are worthy too, and you can't fund everybody. But maybe it's our time, right? Maybe a good solid year and a half of some serious funding coming in, Gates Foundation, or a nice chunk coming in from Bezos. How you doing these days? I buy so much on Amazon, you wouldn't believe it. Okay, they send me gold stars. All right, I got Amazon boxes everywhere here. I use them for containers. So whatever, these people could jack this thing anytime. The big money, though, is a little twitchy because they're very, very well known and they're prominent. And if they really would be aggressive in funding this, maybe some very people in important places might not be happy about that, and it can make their life difficult. I get that. But you get down that mid-range, no problem. Right. If you don't have a 600-foot yacht or anything like that, but you're doing really well, the government doesn't even know who you are. They could really make this thing happen, and we could start doing programs. We're ready. These people, we've been at this for so many decades, so many years, that with the resources, we know what to do, and we could have a big impact. And I'm getting carried away. That's the promo. Well, there's some films coming out pretty soon. Eventually, Age of Disclosure, I think, is going to get a platform, so watch for that.
Okay.
And I know that Ron James has got a film that's going to be turning up pretty soon. I've seen a little bit of it. It's pretty good. And there's other projects going on. So, and then Spielberg's got a big film coming out in 2027, or 2026. Might be 27. I'm not sure. But it's a big deal. It's probably going to make $2 or $3 billion. But that's way down. All right. And then ultimately, I'll leave you with this. There is plenty of, because I didn't get into this, I'm not going to, no time. There is plenty of evidence in the public space right now that I'm following closely. Others are too, but I'm following it more closely. That indicates that the possibility of the president speaking on this, going to this, is in play. It is being considered.
Oh, good.
It is seriously being considered. I think I can say that with high confidence. Now, does that mean it'll happen? No. But given all the other things that are happening, put it all together, it's possible that our president will make the decision, because nothing can stop him from doing it. It's
60 seconds. We're going to run out.
Come out, announce the ET presence, and achieve that incredible legacy, and change the world. So don't be shocked if it happens.
Okay. Well, thank you, Steve, very much for being on the podcast. I'm going to bring you out. I'll talk to you after a few minutes afterwards. To everyone else, I just want to thank you for being a part of this podcast. Steve is just an incredible guest. He's got so much knowledge. He knows the history, he knows the events. And so we're very, very blessed to have him. Make sure that you support Paradigm Research Group and also the Hollywood Alliance. Those are just a couple efforts of many that are out there that's going to help us to get to disclosure. Once again, if you like this channel, I'm just going to ask you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I want to thank all of you for making it to the end. God bless.
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals